the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. Ms. Allen, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Mrs. Currington?
Yes.
Mr. Lumpkin?
Yes.
Mrs. Simmons?
Yes.
And Mrs. Cherry?
Yes, and we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Our next subject D is our mission statement.
The mission of Trotwood-Madison City Schools is to graduate all students prepared to excel in a global society with a commitment to lifelong learning by guaranteeing a challenging curriculum facilitated by innovative and dedicated staff, community participation, and state-of-the-art resources in a stimulating atmosphere.
Subject E is to adopt the agenda. I need a motion to adopt the agenda, but are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, I would like to recommend moving executive session item, the last item on executive session.
That's 11?
Yes, 11, to the beginning of the meeting directly after we choose to adopt the agenda. After community comments, I'm sorry, after community comments.
So I need a motion to adopt the agenda with the changes, moving executive session item 11 to number 3.
Yeah.
I need a motion.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
It's been moved and second. Ms. Allen, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Lumpkin?
Yes.
Mrs. Simmons?
Yes.
Mrs. Currington?
Yes.
And Mrs. Cherry?
Yes, motion passes to move executive session to board item 3 where action may be taken. Number 2, are there any community comments?
I do not have any.
That being none, I need a motion to move into executive session.
I motion that we move into executive session. I'll second.
It's been moved that we move in executive session where action may be taken. Ms. Allen, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Currington?
Yes.
Mrs. Simmons?
Yes.
Mr. Lumpkin?
Yes.
And Mrs. Cherry?
Yes, motion passes, and we will be entering into executive session at 5:33. to adjourn us out of executive session at 6:15. I'm sorry. So there was changes to the agenda prior to us going into executive session, which we moved executive session from number 11 up to number 3. Now we will make an additional changes to the agenda. And those changes will be, we're gonna add a resolution to the board report and add the hand carry for our personnel agenda. I need a motion to agree to the amended agenda.
I'll make a motion for the amended agenda.
I'll second.
I
Yes.
second.
It's been properly moved. Ms. Allen, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Mrs. Simmons?
Yes.
Mrs. Currington?
Yes.
Mr. Lumpkin?
Yes.
And Mrs. Cherry?
Yes, motion passes for the additional amendment to the agenda. Now we're at the item number, for board report, item number 4. At this time, a resolution of censure against Sidney Davis Jr. Whereas each member of the Trotwood-Madison City School District Board of Education has taken an oath of office in which he or she has sworn to faithfully perform the duties of the office, and whereas Board Bylaw 0142 provides that each member of the board shall meet the qualifications specified by law in courts of competent authority, and whereas RC 3313.01 specifies that the board shall consist of board members who shall be electors residing in the territory composing the respective districts and shall be elected at large in their respective districts, and whereas Board Bylaw 0146 provides that whenever a member shall cease to be a bona fide resident of the district, his membership shall cease immediately, and whereas Sidney Davis Jr. ran for election to the Board of Education in November 2021 unopposed and undertook his oath as a Board of Education member on January 2nd, 2022, and whereas on June 20th, 2024, Sidney Davis Jr. caused a public complaint to be filed in the Montgomery County Court of Common Pleas captioned Sidney O. Davis Jr. versus Tyranny A. Green, case number 2024 CV 03487, asserting that he resided at the 1275 Westbrook Road, Clayton, Ohio 45415 from April 2021 until February 2024, and submitting a sworn verifying affidavit that the statement in his complaint are true and correct as he verifiable believers. And whereas the property at 1275 Westbrook Road, Clayton, Ohio, is located outside the territory composing of the Trotwood-Madison School District. And whereas the Sidney Davis Jr. admits through his filed complaint and sworn verifying affidavit that he did not reside within the territory of Trotwood-Madison City School District during the period of April 2021 through February 2024, and thereby was not qualified to be a member of this Board of Education from January 2022 until February 2024. And whereas Sidney Davis Jr. did not disclose the residency outside the school district during the period of the resign of otherwise ceased his membership on the Board of Education. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this board hereby formally expresses its disapproval of the aforementioned and conducted by Sidney Davis Jr. and through the resolution of the censor admonishes him and respectfully requests his immediate resignation from the Board of Education. I need a motion.
I motion.
I second.
It's been properly moved and second that after discussion, a roll call vote for taken as results. Ms. Allen, will you want to call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Lumpkin?
Yes.
Mrs. Currington?
Yes.
Mrs. Simmons?
Yes.
And Mrs. Cherry?
Yes, motion passes. For the resolution of censure against Sidney Davis Jr.
Do you want to first discuss?
Next, come again?
You want to have discussion to kind of explain to the public how we came to that, or no?
Okay. It's the consensus of the board that we will have a discussion in reference to this resolution. You may go ahead.
Oh, now you asked to do it. Okay, that's fine. So, just a little bit of an explanation about just the integrity of the Board of Education and how important it is for us to make sure that we follow Ohio Revised Code. So for a long time in this community, a lot of things have happened that have just been outside of code and have gone unaddressed, sometimes from behind this board seat, sometimes in other forms of government here. So it's not with light action that we take the taxpayers' dollars and how they're spent lightly. So following Ohio Revised Code actually keeps us from being able to have to do things like what we just had to do. So it was not that we came to the decision to censure Mr. Davis lightly. It's just that we have to make sure that this board is one that acts within integrity and one that also acts in accordance to law.
Well said. Are there any other comments?
No.
If you do, then say it.
Mrs. Currington?
And I guess one more thing that I would want the general public to know, that in him doing so, not being able to serve on the board, we did pay, the city of Trotwood School District did pay him out and a lump sum of money that we do intend to recoup and give it back to the school district. I think it was over $15,000 that he was paid out, sitting in a seat that he was not supposed to be here. So I think, as Mr. Lumpkin said, this was not malicious, this was not something that we take lightly. This came about, and we feel like, as the board, collectively, that we have to do the right thing. That hurts our students, that hurts staff, that hurts our community, if we just let something like this just go. And I think I don't know if I speak for the board, but
I think that it's important that the community understands that it is a collective decision.
yes,
It is not a decision that comes from one party of the body. It is not a personal vendetta or anything like that. We've heard some of that noise. It is a collective decision, because ultimately, we're responsible for being good stewards of the taxpayers' money. Well, every decision that we make, we have to be good stewards of our taxpayers' money. And I think that it's unfortunate that we've come to this, because ultimately the people should decide who represent them, but they should also have all of the information about who they are choosing to represent them.
and even more than the taxpayer dollars, we have to be a champion for the school district, for our student, and that's the big picture.
If nothing else, we will move to the consent agenda. So I need approval of the Catapult Learning West consent agenda, and I need action on that consent. Oh, you want me to do A and B? Okay. And then, also approval of student activity statement and budget, MD function class and yearbook at Trotwood-Madison High School for the 2024-2025 school year. I need a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve A and B.
I second.
It's been moved, properly moved that A and B. Ms. Allen, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Simmons?
Yes.
Mrs. Currington?
Yes.
Mr. Lumpkin?
Yes.
And Mrs. Cherry?
Yes, motion passes for the approval of the consent agenda, items A and B. Item number 5 is our treasurer's report.
I have several items for action this evening. The first one is the approval of the August 1st, 2024 work session and August 15th, 2024 regular meeting minutes. I do ask for approval for that.
Go ahead.
I need a motion to approve the August 1st, 2024 work session and August 15th, 2024 regular meeting minutes.
I move.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Ms. Allen, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Lumpkin?
Yes.
Mrs. Simmons?
Yes.
Mrs. Currington?
Yes.
And Mrs. Cherry?
Yes. Motion passes for approval of the meeting minutes.
5B, or actually 6B now, approval of the August 2024 financial reports. There are 3 reports in front of you. The first report is our cash, well, let me start again. We did have a finance committee meeting this evening. We welcome Luana Currington as first time sitting at the finance committee. Thank you for that, Mrs. Currington. Your entire report that we went over can be found under your executive tab in board docs. So the first report that I'm going to ask for approval is cash reconciliation for August. We have bank statement balances of $1,800,931.90. We have $28,142,412.76 of investments. Our outstanding checks and adjustments are indicated. That brings our adjusted bank balance to $29,779,857.91, and that matches exactly to our financial data. The second report is our spending plan summary through August. So it includes your July and August data. And so the first column is your actual monthly data. And this includes your revenue and your expenses. And then if you look all the way to the right, it also includes your fiscal year-to-date actuals. I always look at line 6.01 that indicates whether we're spending a deficit spending. We are slightly to the tune for a month of $716,632.81. Our fiscal year-to-date is $730,362.16. And what that means is that we have spent that amount over the revenue that has been received. So that's the second report. The third report is checks over $1,000, and that's for the month of August. During the Finance Committee meeting this evening, there was one question on check number 1104-361, the first check actually, in the amount of $139,000. And I just see commercial elevation on here, and maybe Mr. Howard can explain it a little bit more, but it says scope of work is power washing, repair, caulking, and painting of DIFS.
Commercial Elevation was the company that was responsible for the facade of the high school. I don't know if any of you over the summer rode by the high school and you saw the two motorized lifts. We have a lot of areas in the high school where the brick is starting to deteriorate. Because the brick is starting to deteriorate, as we get heavy rains, the water starts to submerge itself into the brick and then ultimately into the building. So this company came in and they filled in all the gaps, caulked, just some of the standard, preventative maintenance and maintenance that that a building with 400,000 square feet would require. questions on that? You got a question?
I just one.
Yeah.
So did we send that out for bid, or did we just choose that company?
So we always, anytime we
Okay.
go for, we go for, improvements, repairs, things like that. Because of this situation, the impending situation, the fact that it was, in a sense, an emergency, we solicited quotes for that.
Okay.
In a situation where we are not in an emergency situation, anytime we're doing something to a building, whether it's repair, improve, replenish, those types of changes or additions, anything like that, we do have to go off the public. Yeah. But in this sense, we didn't, because we were starting to get a lot of water intrusion into the high school.
Okay.
Operation question, I know that. Ask me that all day. All right, thank you.
So if there's not any other questions on checks, I ask the board for acceptance of those financial reports.
So I need a motion.
Wait,
There's another question.
yeah, I have a question.
There's an expenditure, a capital expenditure for motorized trolley carts in the notes. And Mrs. Simmons asked about that, so I didn't know exactly what those were.
Motorized trolley cars.
Yeah, and
Can you tell me the vendor?
I don't have it in front of me, so I can just write that down to get
We
it
can
back.
get back to them.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'll write that down, Mrs. Simmons.
Yeah, but we haven't bought any of those recently, so I don't.
Motorized trolley cart, and that was the description in the financial report, so I will.
You sure it wasn't for the rental of the? I need to look at it. I need to look at the description.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anything else you-
So I need a motion to approve the August 2024 financial reports that Ms. Allen has made mention of, and also that she will get back with the board in reference to the trolley carts.
I motion that we approve the reports that the treasurer mentioned.
I'll second.
It's been moved in second. Ms. Allen, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mrs. Currington,
Yes.
Mrs. Simmons,
Yes.
Mr. Lumpkin,
Yes.
and Mrs. Cherry.
Yes, so motion passes.
The last item I have is another amended appropriation document, and in front of you, and also under your executive tab, is the reason why the changes to these appropriations. And so the appropriation from the last time we did it, so the last time I had an appropriation change was last meeting on September 5th. And so the general fund, we increased the appropriations from 42 million to 45,376,126.36. That's because of increase of salaries and benefits, primarily due to the elimination of ESSER. Was a large majority of the increase. Then we have food service, $2,036,244.90. We did increase that by $790,000. And then Title I, Disadvantaged Children, Fund 584, we did increase that by $108,801.30. So those three changes from last meeting, now I'm asking you to approve a total of $58,638,446.15. And that's an amended appropriation for FY '25.
I have a question. Can you elaborate, probably Mr. Howard, on the Title I disadvantaged children?
Let me try to pull that up. Elaborate on
Or can Ms. Mallory,
elaborate on the expenditure.
and like how many children? That's,
So this is a grant.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a
That's
grant.
This is a
Okay.
grant, Fund 584, and it's a grant, and we normally get about 2 million and some change in that particular grant. so,
And that is based on the Title I designation of the,
make sure.
yeah.
One second, I just wanna make sure. I'm sorry, it's Title I, 572. Fund 572, that's Title I,
And not 584.
not 572.
Does anyone have any questions? All right, I need a motion to approve the amended appropriation for period ending June 30th, 2025.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved. Ms. Allen, would you call the roll?
Mrs. Simmons?
Yes.
Mrs. Currington?
Yes.
Mr. Lumpkin?
Yes.
And Mrs. Cherry?
Yes, motion passes for the amended appropriations. Next is the superintendent's report.
I do have a few items this evening. The first item, superintendent's item A, is a report card review. As we all know, the state report card came out last week. And, you know, with our curriculum team, under the guidance of leadership of Ms. Murdoch, we put together a review in sense of just giving you, the board, some information about our state report card, where we landed, what our data looks like from the fall, and what our plans are to ultimately try to improve achievement here in the district. I wanted to take a few minutes to allow Ms. Murdoch to kind of share some of the information that we're going to be discussing tomorrow, actually, in our DOT as well, where we get the data and information in front of the staff, the building staff. But I think it's important for the board to see this information and get a general sense and understanding of where we are and where we plan to head. Ms. Murdoch, if you don't mind.
All right, so we are gonna share two types of data with you. We're gonna start with the report card, which captures our achievement and performance from last spring, and then also look at fall map data. So we'll start with the report card data and where we are after that release on Friday. So just a few pieces of information about the report card. The overall rating is based on 6 components. Only 5 of those are included in this year's overall rating. That final 6th one, college, career, workforce, and military component, will be scored at the earliest next year. It has not been included in the overall to date. So we're gonna look through the other 5 at where we are, how we did compared to last year, and where we hope to go moving forward. So just starting with our star ratings. As you know, the report card is out of 5 stars. So overall, we received 2 stars for the school year 2024. That was the same as 2023. In achievement, we received 1 star. That was also the same as 2023. In progress, we got 2 stars. That was a gain of 1 star from 2023. In gap closing, we're also at 2 stars. That was a loss. We were at 3 stars last year, so that's an area to move back into 3 stars on. Graduation rate, we moved from 2 stars to 1. We'll look at that a little more closely. We did not miss that 2-star ranking by much. And then early literacy, we were at 1 star, which is the same as last year. So we'll look at those each in a little more detail. So the first of those categories, achievement, is based on our performance index. There's only one measure that goes into that. That's how well we perform on the state tests in the spring. You get points based on how well students perform in each category. So there are less points awarded for students who perform in the limited area than there are for students who perform in proficient or advanced. So it's all based on a formula. So with that formula, we had 52 points as our performance index score. Those points are then turned into a percentage by dividing that number by the average of the highest performing, the highest 2% of performing districts in the state. So the denominator changes a little bit every year. This year, the denominator was close to 109. It was a little over a point higher than the year before. So that's a bit of a moving target, but our percentage rate was, I should have brought my glasses up here, 47.6%. Oh, good memory, okay. So that's our percentage. So that's very close, just a little bit higher than where we were last year. So we see just a slight improvement, but we definitely need to accelerate that improvement more. And just to emphasize that, I did include this. This is our proficiency trend over the last several years. Like a couple things you can see, that gray bottom area, those are untested students. So we've made improvements in the amount of students who were untested, so that we make sure every student counts in this measure. And then if you look at that final bar, you can see that we're making slight gains in the yellow, the green, and the black area. Those are the students that are proficient or above, but we do need to accelerate those gains. But I just wanted to point out where we are. Okay, so the next category is the category where we did gain, and that was in progress. This is really the value-added score. How much growth did students have? When we look at this, you can, I'm going to point out several things. The blue bars are the 3-year average. That's what our score is based on, the average 3 years of growth. So you can see, though, in the blue bars in each of those categories, and those are the content area categories, math, ELA, science, social studies, and overall. You can see that the blue bars have gotten, that the red bar, which is 2 years of average, and the green bars have gotten closer to the 0. Now, we need them to be over the 0 like they are in the social studies category on the right, but we're getting closer. So we got a 2 in this area this year, but the green area from this current year, and again, we're scored on the 3-year average, but from this current year, based on that alone, it would have been 3 stars. So if we keep up that trend, we do expect our students to do better, and as they grow in what they learn, they should score higher in achievement as well. And the next component is gap closing. This component has multiple measures that go into it, but I did want to highlight the measure that we can control the most, and that is chronic absenteeism. Now, that measure is based on a student's chronically absent if he or she misses 10% of the school year or more. So that means that students who are chronically absent for school year 24 were absent about 17 days, so about 3.5 weeks. Okay, so that's an area where we can start making improvements immediately and start working on this gap closing score. We'll work on the other areas too, but that's one that we feel strongly if we correct the chronic absenteeism, reduce the chronic absenteeism, then we will start to get more gains in growth and achievement in all the other areas. And so just to capture that just a little more graphically, we were at 46.7% chronic absenteeism in 2024. That's a lot of our students missing a lot of time. So we will be talking tomorrow about initiatives to start making improvements in that absenteeism, as well as having district leadership team members look at what it takes to meet the criteria for that improvement, because we feel that all schools can do that, and they can do it in 3 ways: by meeting or exceeding the annual goal. This year the annual goal was 18%, or by improving the rate by 1.1 percentage points. That's definitely within our grasp, or by reducing their rate by 3%. And it's one or the other depending on whether they are over or under 36.7% chronically absent. And then graduation. This is where we did go from 2 stars to 1 star. I did want to point out that the graduation measure always lags a year behind. So this 83.1% is from the graduating class of 2023. So next year we'll see the graduating class of 2024. This one's always a year behind. To meet the 2-star measure that we had met the year before, the score had to be 84%, and we were at 83.1. Now, I think this is also an area that we can actively target. To meet a 3-star, we would need to be at 90%. And then the last component that was scored on this year's report card was the early literacy component. And this is how well our students in K through 3 are performing, whether they're performing on track for reading. So there are 3 measures that go into that: proficiency in 3rd grade reading, improving K through 3 literacy, that's tracking who is going from off track to on track, and then promotion to 4th grade. So we were slightly lower than we had been the year before. In 2023, we were at 55, and this year it was 51.8. One change in this is a change in the law. For the last 2 years, all students were promoted from 3rd grade to 4th grade. This year, if students did not meet the proficiency in 3rd grade reading, they were retained unless their parents asked that they be promoted. Now, Madison Park did a wonderful job of contacting all parents and making sure they understood the law and that they knew their rights to request promotion if that's what they wanted. And so the students who were retained were with the parents' knowledge and the parents' desire that they be retained. Okay? And that was only 3 students. And then the last component, as I said, is not rated this year. It will be rated at the earliest in 2025, and that is our college, career, workforce, and military readiness. I did include that graph so you can see that we have seen an upswing in that in the next 3 years, and it's an area also that we're aware of and tracking and know that we need to improve. Right, and so finally, I'm just including the overall school ratings for this year for each building. And that is it for the report card update. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Schulze. He's going to go through some slides on where we are in our map data, and then we'll take questions at the end.
So we had talked last time we were up here about map data and what that's showing us and how we can really utilize that. So I'm going to do some overviews of the map data, what we have so far, because we just concluded the map data. So now this is really the starting point for all of our teachers, for all of our students for this year. It gives the teachers kind of like that baseline data of where their kids are at, what they're ready to learn, and how they can move them along, all right? So when we're talking about MAP is really talking about growth. So it's looking at where the kids are at and how can we get them to grow. So a lot of the things in the report card, we're talking about achievement, like there's a certain level you need to be, or a certain score you need to get to be proficient. MAP is really looking at growth, okay? So some couple terms when we're talking about MAP. MAP is norm referenced, so that just means that NWEA, which is the company who does MAP, has students from all over the nation take this test. Every 4 years, they re-reference and say, okay, the 5th graders in the fall, their average score was this number. That's what a norm reference score is. It does not necessarily mean that you're going to be proficient on the OST. It's just saying if you got this score, you're at the average score for that particular grade level at that particular time. A RIT score, that's the score they get. It's an estimated number of their instructional level. A RIT score is not tied to grade level. It kind of seems arbitrary because we're going to be looking at numbers anywhere from like 100 to 275. So it's just the scale that the company uses, but it's a scale that can be added onto, almost like inches and feet on a ruler, so they stack up, so it's not necessarily grade level dependent. Your instructional level, this is the part that the teachers can really utilize because The kids get a RIT score. That tells the teachers where the kids are at for which strategies and what skills they're ready for and where they can go after that. And it is an adaptive assessment. So as the kids get questions right, they get harder questions. As they miss them, they get easier questions. And it's kind of this back and forth, okay? The last bullet says it provides growth, but there are some projected achievements that are tied with it. They've done enough research that says if you get a certain score or score in a particular range, they feel pretty confident that you're going to score in that particular range on the OST. But that's just a prediction, and that's sometimes accurate, sometimes not, but it's just a prediction. So that's why they go that route. So I wanted to show this. This is a graphic of as the kids are going through the test, what the computer system is doing in the back. So I mentioned it's adaptive. So if you look at that top track, a kid got a particular, in this case, this is a math example, they got it right, they got a harder question, they got it right, they got a harder question, got it right. They got a fourth question, they missed it, so now it's going to drop it down. So it's just this back and forth until it has a smaller confidence interval to then say, yeah, we're pretty sure they've got through, and this is now their RIT score. So that top one is an example of a RIT score over 236, okay? What I always tell students to give them some peace of mind, they're going to miss half the questions. So as they get them right, they're going to get harder, it's going to drop them down. They get that one right, it's going to be this back and forth. So essentially, every kid who takes this test will get half of them right and half of them wrong. And I think that's good for our students to know that they're going to see stuff that they don't know how to do. And just having that mindset that's this back and forth, which sets that level. So this is now looking at our fall data. So the blue line is the average RIT score for the Trotwood students. And then across the bottom, you can see the grade levels. The orange line is what the national norms are from across the country that MAP has produced. So you can see K1, we are really close to being at the national norm. But as we get older in that grade level, that closeness or the gap widens, but then it kind of settles out in most cases. So you can see where we are at as far as being close. So we start early, we're pretty close, but then the gap just kind of widens and then it holds wide throughout afterwards. So that's the ELA data. The MAP data looks very similar as far as the gaps, the starting close. So one thing that is nice that MAP does is it gives us predictive scores. So this one's a little more busy, but it's got some great information on it. So once again, the blue line is where the average score for the grade from the fall is, okay? MAP then says, okay, if you have this score, you get a predicted growth score. So that is the orange line, the winter expected growth. So the average kindergartner should grow roughly, that's about 10 points in the winter, okay? That's what's saying is, MAP is saying based off of our students and our scores, that's what's predicted for them to score is about 10 points an increase, okay? The gray line is a winter stretch goal, because we know, because we are currently behind the national norm, if we just get our kids to grow 1 year, they're still going to be behind. So we need to get them to grow more than a year's worth of growth. So what we like to do is provide teachers and students with a stretch goal. So the orange line is what MAP says is expected. The silver line is a stretch goal. So if we can get all of our kids to a stretch goal, we're going to start to see that widening band that we saw in the beginning start to shrink. And then what I do want to point out here at K1, if our kids are able to reach their stretch goal, which is that gray line, we will then be above the national norm for the winter score. So if we can consistently do that in all grade levels, that gap is going to decrease, and we're going to see our kids being closer and closer to the national norm. So these are the K6 for ELA. This is 712 ELA. We got a lot more work to do here because you can see that our stretch growth is far away from the winter national norm. But once again, if we can get all grade levels doing this, we can start to decrease this. Now, what I'm hoping to do, or what I'm going to do, is so we have these trend lines of where our goals are for winter and then for stretch. What I can do is when we take the winter map test, we can take the winter map scores and overlay them to this to see how well we did at meeting expected growth and how well we did at meeting stretch growth. So that's a way that we can start measuring, like, hey, are we hitting the mark? Are we growing the kids a year or expected, or are we doing more? So I'm excited to work with that and see where these trends come into play. So here's K1 math, a whole very similar picture to the ELA scores. And then the secondary math, same type of thing as well.
So as you can see, we put a lot of effort into trying to give a very layman's explanation with regards to the report card. We all have identified in you know, folks in this room and in the meetings that we have, that we know we have some work to do, but we also have some areas of celebration that we're going to make sure that we address. But we know we have some work to do. We know that there's some things that we need to drill down and identify and focus on, especially when it comes to literacy. We have a district-wide reading improvement plan, reading achievement plan that we're going to start working with and implementing, and have already done in essence. But you know, we're not going to sit here and act like, you know, that our data and our score is where we want to be. Our goal is to improve. Our goal is to achieve, because our kids deserve it. We all know we have some environmental factors that come to us on a daily basis that can't be excuses. They can't be excuses. They can be hurdles, but they can't be excuses. So our goal is to definitely, especially starting tomorrow, get the data in a much more detailed way in front of our building leadership teams, district leadership team, and talk about the data, and then start using the data to drive the things that we're doing in the classrooms. Of course, if you have any questions, I can answer, or I can redirect them to.
Do we have any idea of what our 2024 graduation rate is going to be on the upcoming?
We don't yet, but as time progresses, and Mr. McCray is here, and he can chime in if he can, based upon the numbers that we have, we have to look at those numbers, those specific numbers of the kids, because it's a 5-year graduation. It's a 4-year and a 5-year, right? Based on the history of how that graduation rate goes.
60% based on the 4-year and
Right.
40 on the 5-year.
Right, yeah, so I can check, and we can try to see, you know, upcoming, because again, that lags a year. But we can definitely dig into that and see what the data inputted was, what the inputted data was, and see, kind of get a guesstimation of where we're going to land.
Another question on that. The last year, I asked about how we track what the state says Trotwood-Madison has as seniors and what we have on our rolls. And I don't know that we ever got an answer to how we're actually tracking that, because we could have 100% success, but the state could have a different set of kids that are on that.
Great point. That kind of leads into just a brief summary of a conversation that Ms. Murdoch and I had this week. One of the plans that we are going to implement, one of the things that we are going to implement is all of this data is reported through what's called EMIS. I don't exactly remember what the EMIS acronym is, but EMIS is a process of reporting that the school districts are responsible for that turn into all this data. What we're going to do a little more intentionally is we are going to allow our principals, not allow, but we're going to work with our principals to get them in the secure data center where all of this EMA data is loaded. And we're gonna sit down as a group and we're going to make sure that all of the data that we are submitting to the state is the data that we perceive as being correct. We often find errors that, you know, you have one person who's responsible for that inputting, but she is just EMIS. You know, we've got to get the folks that are a little closer to the data, which would be these folks out here along with these folks, to sit down and help her review that data to make sure that what we input along with the lines that you're saying is what we are actually going to see when we, when we expect these scores to come out. Because we have found errors. And one of the things I told Ms. Murdoch is, how do we know that everything that we're putting into this system is correct? And then we just kind of talked through it, and ultimately we said, you know what, we need to get more eyes on this. So as we move towards, I think we said maybe the fall, late winter, spring, we're gonna start formulating a process where all of us look at the data that goes into that secure data center to ensure that it is the right data.
Good plan.
Because Mr. McCray or Mrs. Sterner or Ms. Wilburn may be able to look at something and say, that doesn't look right. Because we've had to do that. We've had a couple different situations this year already where we had to go back and resubmit something because the data didn't actually look right. So we got to get everybody, kind of all hands on deck to ensure we're on the same page. That's a great question.
I have a question. For the chronic absenteeism, where does the most, the students from K through 3, is it more high school, is it? Where's
It
the
increases
deficit?
the lowest rate, well, okay, our preschool students count in that, and we have a lot of chronic absence in preschool. Okay, so the preschool is a little higher than maybe expected. From K through 3, that's probably where we have our lowest rates, and then they start to go up in 4, 5, and 6, 8, and 9, 12. And that's pretty much in line with everyone in the state, where there's more absences as students get older, but we need to get all of them down.
So, do we have a plan to combat that?
Principals are gonna start working on that tomorrow at the district leadership team meeting. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm gonna be real transparent. I think, the data has given us all kind of like a light bulb moment with regards to chronic absenteeism. I spoke with the Chamber of Commerce yesterday. The city was there. There were other various city organizations there, and I explained to them about our issue with chronic absenteeism, and along with some of the plans that we do internally, there are going to be some external things that we try to do to try to help combat, this chronic absentee problem. And again, when explaining chronic absenteeism, you're not just talking about kids just not coming to school. You're talking about kids that come to school late, kids that leave early. There's some other factors, that kind of log into that. I talked to the city about, even like a call watch program. Like if you're at home and you see kids just out and about, or you see some kids walking to school, give us a call. And maybe we can put something in place. We got bus drivers that are sitting around here. There have to be some other types of ways that we strategically attack chronic absenteeism. And I think we're going to have some internal discussion tomorrow, but we're also going to have some external discussion because the city needs to know, because they have some concerns about that. Because if kids are not in school, there may be other places doing some other things. And we want to make sure that that the city of Trotwood understands that this is an issue. We've got to attack it.
Ms. Murdoch, I think you said there was only 3 third graders that didn't pass the third grade guarantee test. Is that?
There were only 3 that were retained,
Retained.
okay? Yeah, as far as we were at 39.9% passage, and then we had some other students, 40-some who met. There were alternative ways to meet that through a MAP score or through a reading sub-score. So I think that was about, you might know, Ms. Sterner, 42 or so, 40-some who met the criteria to be promoted. Okay, yeah. And 3 whose parents requested that they be retained.
You got any more questions, Ms. Murdock?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Murdock and Dr. Schultz, we appreciate it. B, B. Okay.
Next on our agenda is the approval of the personnel agenda.
I am asking for approval of the personnel agenda as stated, as shown here in the document with the amendments of hand-carried items. A1, recommendation of the approval of the following certified supplementals. A2, recommendation of the approval of the following certified club advisors. The majority of those are for the middle school. And then B2, recommendation for the approval of the following classified staff to be used on an as-needed basis, and that is a substitute lifeguard. All of you guys have a copy of that. I'm asking for a approval of those personnel agenda items tonight.
So I need a motion to approve the personnel agenda.
I motion.
I second.
Ms. Allen, it's been properly moved in second. Will you call the roll?
Mr. Lumpkin,
Yes.
Mrs. Simmons,
Yes.
Mrs. Currington,
No.
and Mrs. Cherry.
Yes. Motion passes for the personnel agenda. So next would be the amendment for the head carry.
No, I did that.
Okay, you
Yeah, I
did,
made
okay.
that mention in the agenda. Yep.
Next on the agenda is discussion items.
All right. There are 2 discussion items that are detailed on the agenda. The first is the after-school programming update and Sylvan Learning Center. One of the board members did ask where we stood with regards to after-school programming and tutoring. This has always been kind of a requested, bit of information that the board has requested. So one of the things I do want to, just kind of share, and then I'm gonna have Ms. Mallory and Ms. Murdock kind of talk about programming a little bit, is that, we are really trying to evaluate the substance of our program, what we do after school, what we do with kids. As you looked at, our scores and where we are, we identify that, our concern is not, getting kids after school just to, help in a sense of, maybe somebody needs a little bit of help with homework, et cetera, et cetera. We've got a larger scale problem. And, that kind of centers around our core instruction. What are we doing on a day-to-day basis to intervene with kids that are struggling, to help move kids? And the standard concept of tutoring, which is kind of what the overarching, name or description was, is really not what a district like us needs. We need some program overhaul. And I kind of want to bring, not kind of, but I want to bring Miss Murdock and Mrs. Mallory up to just kind of talk about what our programming and would look like and what the intentionality of that is, so the board kind of understands, is what I'm trying to say. Board really understands what tutoring in this district should look like and what our expectation is. We want to have opportunities for kids to come after school if they need help with homework. We want that to be a part of this comprehensive program, but what we really want to do is provide other opportunities for kids to get support with some of the things that they're struggling with. And these ladies just have a little summary with regards to that.
Good evening,
Good evening.
and just for the record, our boss called us Laverne and Shirley earlier today, so we'll talk
love
about, I
it.
don't know who's Laverne and who's Shirley.
I love
so-
Laverne and Shirley. That was one of my favorite shows growing up.
But just a little bit of, just to piggyback on what Mr. Howard said, we've done some research and looking at our state scores, our MAP scores, and just looking at how we've done after-school programming over the last few years. It is not the kind of programming that's going to give a district that has the kind of needs that we have, give us the biggest bang for our buck. We have to be more intentional about looking at core instruction, and the research really says that high dosage impact tutoring should be done during the school day. It should be directly connected to the content of what we're teaching them every day. It should be done by certified or, licensed professionals, not just somebody who wants to stay after school to, maybe earn a couple extra dollars and help out. And it should be taught or given or provided in a setting with the individuals that teach them every day, so it's connected to that content. And that's kind of hard when you got a list of individuals who have signed up for after-school tutoring, but they're not the individuals who have taught the kids and been with the kids most of the day. And so and then it also says, I think, that it should be done in small groups. So students should be broken down into smaller groups. And so we've looked at some ways of how to integrate that during the day. It's gonna, on a bigger scale, it is definitely gonna look at us all, looking at our master schedule, possibly increasing some of the hours of the school day for students. And that could look different in a number of ways, but with the number of hours that students currently are in school, it's kind of difficult to embed some extra intervention or tutoring time in that day. And so when we look at the number of hours that our students are in school across the grade levels, we are not at the max or close to the top of the tier of hours where students can be in school, if that makes sense, during the school year. And so there's room for that, but that kind of adjustment can't be made in the middle of a school year. So that is definitely a longer term plan. But Ms. Murdoch and I did sit and talk, and we shared some things with Mr. Howard about what are some things we can kind of do immediately this year. And so she's going to share what it's going to look like, or what it could look like. So we're here asking for your support, of course, and just changing the mindsets of what tutoring should look like. And so she's going to share what that looks like, maybe K through 5 during the school day. And then middle and high school, we may end up just going with some type of like homework help after school that's available for middle schoolers and high schoolers for this year, until we can really look at the master schedules of both of those buildings to see what that intervention during the school day can look like. Is that fair? Shirley or Laverne?
So, yes, I did want to add to that, just to talk a little bit more about what is law and expected by law in the elementary buildings. So in the K through 5 buildings, if students are on a RIMP, which is a reading improvement plan, that means they are not on track to be at grade level reading. Any student on a RIMP has to be offered by law high dosage tutoring, okay? And that's defined, just as Ms. Mallory said, as tutoring that happens 2 to 3 times a week for 30 minutes by a professional expert in that area using materials that are directly related to instruction. Okay? Now, what we do know, as Ms. Mallory also said, is that our school day is short. It's shorter than some of our neighboring districts. And so the high dosage tutoring expectation has to be done on top of the expectations for minimum minutes in reading content and for intervention. Those are all built into our school day, which, as all the elementary principals will tell you, is extremely difficult to get into the day as it is. So we will be offering some after-school options for our K through 5 students to get that high dosage tutoring as we work more towards how we might be able to get it into the school day in the future. We've explored several models, so we don't have that model to share with you. We want to make sure we go with a model that's approved by the Ohio Department of Education and that makes sense for us. for our students' needs and for the resources, the financial resources we have to provide for it. So just to say that that will be coming, that's in the works, it's very much on our radar to get that started as soon as possible. And I'll add to that, like, we may not get everything implemented in secondary that we want to, but what we are committed to doing is emphasizing core instruction PK through 12. What we have seen is that teachers with good intentions have been intervening instead of teaching core. What we know from research is if all students are exposed to core, the core curriculum every day, and when interventions are targeted through differentiation, then they will make progress. So if we fix the core, we're going to reduce the need for the tutoring to begin with.
So with that, just a summary of, you know, our plans and the intentionality that we have to try to definitely make some change. And it's not gonna happen overnight. You know, we're not gonna snap our fingers and all of a sudden we got this great robust schedule and this great robust tutoring plan. We're gonna put all our heads together and we're gonna work to try to develop some things that are embedded in our school day, along with, you know, the clubs and activities that we still have after school, which are a very important part of you know, the holistic child, along with, you know, some of those homework help type setups. But when we talk about actual tutoring, we definitely need to work a little harder to develop a robust program that we believe will, you know, produce some results. Any questions?
So I know that it can't happen overnight, but is there some type of time frame that you can give us that this high dosage tutoring will be implemented?
Well, I would say, you know, with the very, you know, practical statement and general statement per se, that we can't look at changing schedules right now. It's going to be hard to do that right now because, you know, we're almost through first quarter. But once we have this conversation in the DLT and conversation with the principals, yes, I think within the next couple of weeks, we will have some things, some strategies and some plans that we're going to implement with regards to intervention. As we start looking a little longer term, you know, bringing, you know, some different layers of scheduling, some different layers of intervention built into the day, I think ultimately that's our goal.
So when we talked about homework help from middle through high school, what triggers a student having to go to that? Like, do we have any idea of what's going to trigger us to have a student go into that program?
From my perspective, you know, you have the one aspect of the athletic program that is going to be drilled into that homework help aspect, which we're going to work on, you know, immediately in a sense. But also, I think we have to identify some kids with certain GPAs, and then just open it to kids that may need some assistance. You know, that's how I've seen it work in the past. I mean, years ago when I was an active teacher and a principal in the district, I worked in the homework help center. And, you know, there were certain kids that came based upon GPAs, based upon, you know, probationary status, and it was an effective process.
So I know athletics has the probationary period that they have. Is there going to be any kind of requirement? Are we going to be keeping attendance on who's actually going to get the help that they need to be able to achieve the 2.0? And if they don't, what's the consequence for them not showing up?
Well, I think with a very general understanding that, you know, when it happens, it's going to be embedded in their process. So just like last year when we had this different kind of tutoring situation, the kids were responsible for being marked whether or not they were tardy or present, so on and so forth. So if we have a homework help initiative where they're all a part of this program, they absolutely would have to be. And then I'm almost certain to say that if they don't attend, then that's a consequence of, you know, of that probationary period, removal from,
But that's just for the athletes, correct?
right.
So what about just a traditional student who's having trouble or?
Right. That's gonna be a process that we have to create. You know,
Okay.
that's gonna be a process that we have to create, because a kid there's a difference between a kid that just doesn't do their work and is struggling, and a kid that doesn't understand what's going on in the classroom.
Yeah.
This global concept that they're talking about, we're talking about some kids that are struggling with concepts.
Absolutely.
We're not talking about kids that are, you know, I
Just
just
not
ain't
doing
doing
it.
the work. Those kids that are not doing their work, they're gonna have an opportunity to partake in this homework help center and bring their GPA up. But globally,
Yes.
we need something different, because as you can see with what we just saw, we got a lot of work to do in that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't feel like that it should be just based on athletics either. I think if a
Yeah.
student has a grade point average that doesn't meet our standard, whatever that standard is, whether it's 2.0, 2.5, or whatever, it should trigger that resource for that kid to have to go to.
Right.
And we should be like, doing as much as we can to get to that parent to say, hey, your student's not meeting this requirement. We have this program that's available that they have to go to so that we can help correct their issue, regardless if they're participating in extracurriculars or not.
Logged and
Noted.
and noted. All right. Appreciate that. Thank you, ladies. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, the next item, any more questions? Comments? Our next item is the voter registration event with the city of Trotwood.
Okay, very quickly, I received a phone call, a couple weeks ago from Jeff Mims, the, mayor of the city of Dayton. Well, Miss Allen received it, and she gave it to me, and I talked to Mayor Mims, and he wanted to come into our buildings. Apparently, this is something that took place before, and I wasn't real familiar with it. He wanted to come into our buildings, talk to some of our seniors, our 18-year-olds that are on the verge of turning, that are on the verge of turning 18, or that are 18 currently, and talk to them about the importance of voter registration, registering to vote, voting rights, etc. I made an outreach to our mayor because I felt he shouldn't be the one, you know, doing that from the standpoint of coming into the city of Trotwood. So I made an outreach to our mayor, and I made an outreach to the vice president and the president. We talked, got a situation together, October 1st at 10 o'clock at the high school. Mayor Page and any of you guys that are interested can come to the high school, and Mayor Page and Mayor Mims will be there, but Mayor Page, you talk to Mayor Page directly. She will be kind of leading this, and along with, you know, any of you guys that want to come into the building. And there's going to be about, I think, roughly about 50 kids that are at that threshold that meet either 18 or are going to turn 18 before October 20th or something like that. And just talk to those kids about the importance of registering to vote, what voting means. It's a totally nonpartisan event. Nobody's going to tell anybody who to vote for or what. It's just going to be informational session, and that's going to be October 1st at 10 o'clock a.m. I didn't say October 10th, did I?
No.
Okay. On October 10th, the same group of kids will be invited to participate in the initial voters parade that will, at this point, I'm almost certain that our band is going to be participating in that as well. The kids will march from somewhere on 3rd Street
To the county building.
to the county building to
Yes.
come down and cast their first ballot as voters in our country. So that's October 10th. I don't have all the information about the parade, but October 1st will be the event at the high school. Mr. McCray has already secured that date. Mr. McCray went to the volleyball game.
So it's every
he's like-
kid that will be 18, that's 18 now or will be 18 before November 4th?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Whatever that last date you can
It is-
register to vote.
Well, the last date you can register to vote is October 7th.
October 7th, whatever
they-
the last day you can register, right. Yep, so,
So we will probably want to get them registered on the 1st.
right, so I believe that Mayor Page is gonna have, registration
yeah.
information and everything.
She.
Yep, so,
Okay.
October 1st, 10 o'clock at the high school.
Awesome.
All right. And that's all I have.
Okay. Good information, thank you. Next, we have the treasurer's comments.
I had a couple comments this evening. I sent to the board an electronic copy of my September treasurer's update. I also printed a hard copy for you at your seats today. I just wanted to call your attention to two things. I had the awesome opportunity to teach 3 classes last Friday, and our board president came to listen to one of the presentations. I was a little nervous initially, had a wonderful time. Our kids are amazing, they were engaging. The questions that I asked them after I presented, they were listening. I was really, really proud of our kids, and also proud of myself that I was able to do that. Kudos to every single teacher out there, Trotwood, I don't care where you teach, that you guys have a very, very difficult job just to keep a student engaged for 3 different classes. I was exhausted. I only taught 3 classes, so I'm just saying, kudos to you, Mr. Graham, anybody that was a teacher, kudos to you. It was very difficult. The other thing I just wanted to send kudos out to one of my staff members, Gail Neese, who is our EMIS, and EMIS does stand for Educational Management Information System, our specialist. She recently received her bachelor's degree after an 11-year journey. So I just wanted to send that shout out to her. I'm very, very proud of her. She stuck to it after 11 years, and I think that's awesome. So there's other things on my report, but I just wanted to highlight those 2 items. The second thing, just an FYI to the board, is I'm not sure if you all received this. Did you receive the Southwest Region Fall Conference? It's gonna be held on Thursday, October 10th, from 5 to 8:30 at the Laurel Oaks Career Campus in Wilmington. And so that's a pretty far distance, but traditionally, the board at least has, we've gotten a table to support that event. So last year, I think all of you all came, Mrs. Currington, were you a board member?
Yes.
Yeah, so we were all there last year, so I'm not sure how you all want us to deal with that. You all want us to at least get a table?
Yes,
and then
Aaron
make
said he would
sure-
drive us.
Okay, I think can I ride with you? So at least, do you want us to at least get a table, and then we'll fill up the table? I think last time was 6 seats. If you all pleasure.
You said it's the
6
10th?
to 8 seats, I don't know how many seats, but,
10th of October?
it's October the 10th on Thursday, from 5 to 8:30. So we'll be, letting you all know more details about that, and that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Allen. Superintendent comments.
I do have just a couple quick comments, and I promise you I won't be long-winded. The first one is I want to inform the board of a pretty exciting initiative that we're looking to start here in the next couple of weeks. Mr. Logan is working with the parent engagers and the social workers in a sense, and Jill Adams, and we are going to start a district resource room. When we went to Cleveland Heights for the first football game, I had an opportunity to talk to one of my former coaches, Mike Jones. I don't know if anybody knows Mike Jones. He's a former Trotwood grad, worked here for years, and we had some sidebar conversation. I mean, we talked about football a lot. We talked about a lot of other stuff, but we also talked about this resource room that they just opened in Cleveland Heights. And for the record, we do have a room up here with a lot of stuff in it for a variety of different situations with kids and families, so on and so forth. But we don't have a true process of how we get that stuff to kids when they're in need, other than somebody just call and say, hey, I need a pair of pants, or hey, we need some paper towels, so on and so forth. So working with Ms. Adams, working with Mr. Logan as he's working with the parent engagers, we're going to really try to implement a full-fledged resource room type project where it's going to be, in a sense, if a family comes over here, they're going to have an opportunity to kind of shop in a sense for free. So we're excited about that. He's going to kind of take the lead We've got a lot of stuff over there now. The parent engagers are gonna come over here, they're gonna get it organized, we're gonna get it set up. And then hopefully by the first of the year, we'll be able to, kind of officially open that as a resource room here for our kids. If you look at, in your folder, I've provided just a small brief article about the one in Cleveland Heights, the resource room in Cleveland Heights. And it also, if you go to their school website, it's identified as memo D, as letter D. And it just talks about what they do as far as the resource room, what type of things they provide. And, we're hoping to kind of mirror that in a sense, once we get this thing off the ground and running. Right. And last, the other update I have, in light of, some of the things that are going on nationally and unfortunately affecting one of our local cities, Springfield, Ms. Murdoch felt through our conversation, she felt it was important to update the board on the number of English as a second language students that we have here in the district. What's going on in the country, what's going on in Springfield as far as the Haitian population and some of the things that that city is absorbing and dealing with now. It's just not Springfield. It's countywide. It's nationwide in a sense. But here in Trotwood specifically, I provided you I wanted to just provide you with a list of, not a list, but a number of English as a second language students that we have. That's not in your packet. I'm just gonna read that to you. Currently, we have 61 students that are identified as English as a second language, and we have two staff members that service those individuals, those kids, because once they come into the district, we are responsible for servicing them. And this is the problem per se that is being broadcast. Now, there's a whole lot of other stuff that is being broadcast out there, and that's, when you look at it politically, that's a different conversation. But there is a imminent concern that when kids like this come into the district, how districts respond and deal with those kids. So we, here in our district, we have two individuals that are assigned as teachers in a sense that support these kids that come in to help them be successful in school. So currently we have 61 students that are identified. There are 42 elementary, 19 secondary students, and the key languages they speak are Spanish, Kinyarwanda, yeah, and Swahili. I can say Swahili. So this is the population that we have. And if you go on the east side, they're dealing with something. If you go a little further west, they're dealing with something. So as immigrants, as refugees, come into our district, I think it's important that you guys are aware that we do have a plan to address them. But in the event we get more and more, we're going to have to, address our plan. Yeah, we're going to have to address our plan if that happens. Okay? Just from the standpoint of being able to understand them and have conversations with them. All right. And then last, there was a question.
So our teachers speak those languages?
I don't know if they speak them, maybe Spanish. Yeah.
Are fluent in Spanish, but they both have had experience overseas teaching students English, so they're quite experienced with those.
Cool.
And then sometimes a second language, like for Swahili, they can speak some forms of maybe Spanish or French.
Dual languages,
So it kind of works like, some people speak Spanish, it's like different dialects of Spanish. So, like, somebody who speaks French, they may can speak a dialect of Spanish.
Like the Haitian Creole.
Yeah, like Haitian, yeah.
Right, yeah. So, the purpose of giving you that information was just to let you know that, hey, we do have that here, and we have some people that are attached to that. And last, there was a question about, the update about the number of virtual academy students. And I wanted to share that number with you. Currently, that number is at 59 students, 59, maybe 60 students. And again, that can change daily. And then as we start to see some behaviors that we don't want to see, you know, ultimately, you know, we can start utilizing Virtual Academy for an alternative placement for some kids. Okay. And that's all I had to say.
Thank you, Mr. Howard.
We've had a lot tonight.
Yes, we've had a lot.
Mrs. Cherry, can I add to that? I forgot. When Mr. Howard talked about the resource room, through a connection in the treasurer's office, we were able to secure $500 worth of school supplies. And so we put them all into the resource room. There was zillions of notebooks, color pencils, color pens, certificates, all kind of things. So it was really interesting that this came from Walmart, south of town in Centerville, and they were going to originally take these items to Springboro, but a person that knows another person in our office suggested that they distribute them to our students, and they were more than happy to do that. So we will be sending them a thank you note, and then we'll be bringing it to you to approve that $500 donation.
And with that being said, you know, having conversation at the Chamber of Commerce meeting yesterday, all of those people, all of those stakeholders there are very excited about this opportunity for a resource room. So they're ready and willing to contribute. We just got to get it together and what our process is going to be. But,
Perfect timing before the holidays.
right, so everybody is really, really excited about that.
Awesome.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Howard.
No problem.
So now we have come to the part of the agenda with the board comments, starting with Mrs. Currington.
I'm not gonna keep us long, I think we've been here long enough, but I do want to give, Madam Treasurer her kudos, because because I told her, in the last 3 months, I work in the court system, and we've had 3 different school districts whose treasurer had to sue somebody to get money back. So I just thank you for being fiscally sound and doing a great job for our district. And I want to thank all of you guys, because I know it's not easy coming out here on a Thursday night, staying 4 hours when you've been here all day. We appreciate it. I appreciate the job that you guys are doing. I think I probably get on Mr. Howard's nerves the most, but I think I feel like we all are on the same page. We want to do what's best for the district to move it forward. We are here for our children. I could not work with a better group of people who, I mean, their heart and soul is in doing what's best for the district. Kudos, Dion, Sonia, Aaron, Mr. Howard, and Ms. Allen. I just, hands down, I feel like this is the best board in Montgomery County right now. When you talk about laser focused on making sure that our kids can compete with everybody else, I think we are laser focused. And I know it seems like we're asking a lot, but our kids deserve a lot. So we are asking a lot, and I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and do whatever I need to do to make sure that our kids are successful. Thank you, Mr. Manley, for always showing up, and I'm just excited about the group of people that I'm working with.
Thank you. Mr. Lumpkin.
I will cash app you the amount owed for you giving me that compliment. I appreciate that, Ms. Kern. But on a more serious note, our community suffered some losses over the last couple of weeks that have been devastating losses for our community. And I just want to offer condolences to those families. For me in particular, the Brown family. Well, Lakeisha Brown actually grew up next door to me, next door to my parents on Berman Avenue. And I remember the day that they moved into their house on Eppington. She was a 3-year-old little girl, and her oldest brother, Morris, went with us to play basketball around the corner. My dad made me take Morris to play basketball, and he ran all over the neighborhood. We had to chase him, and it started a relationship between our two families that lasts until today. So to have to experience her losing her life in that car accident and leaving the void for her children, I just want to offer condolences to them and everybody who's been impacted by the losses in our community. And the outreach to them has been amazing, and I think the one thing that's unique about Trotwood is that when something happens to families in Trotwood, we all get behind them and things like that. Mississippi State played Toledo last week, something that's a little lighter than that. And so I had to show that I wore a Toledo football jacket to the Board of Education meeting because they actually beat my Bulldogs 41-17 in Starkville. We had a great time, but the game wasn't good, and I lost a bet to my friend Chad Diggs. And Chad, this is it. This is the last time you'll ever see me wear this nonsense in public. And I'll end my comments there.
Thank you, Mr. London. All right. Vice President Simmons.
Kudos, Mr. Howard. The district resource room is, you just don't understand, for some families that would address the chronic absence as well. So when we talk about moving the needle, those kind of things will actually move the needle. For some of the chronic absences, we don't know the reasons why the kids don't come to school. If we have clothes, if we have food, and providing those families with that, we may tackle that. In addition to that, it may help even with the score. Of course, the absenteeism will help close that achievement gap. So kudos for that idea, for all of you that work so very hard in this district every day. Keep bringing those ideas. New ideas is gonna get us to where we need to be. 2 stars, none of us feel good about that. So let's all roll up our sleeves and keep working, keep chunking. We can do it. That's all.
All right. Thank you so much, Vice President. I just want to say kudos also for the district resource room. I think it will be phenomenal, especially when you have, like Vice President said, that families that are in great need. And some of them, you know, fail to reach out because of, I don't know if it's embarrassment or not, but I think this would be a great opportunity for our families in the district. I also want to just give a shout out to our mayor for the October 1st event at the high school that's going to be taking place. It's very essential that we get our students knowledge on the purpose of voting and the reason for voting, all of that. So I'm looking forward, and I'm going to try to adjust my schedule to attend on the 1st of October. That's all that I really have to say right now. I just appreciate the work that everyone is doing. We're in this together. Let's be a part of the solution versus part of the problem. And I want to also say to Mr. Howard, I want to thank you for being so thorough, providing us with information, updates, everything. I really appreciate it. So thank you. So if there's nothing else.
I do have one thing.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. Because Aaron did send out a condolences to the Browns family, but I also want to send out condolences to the Crimes family, because we lost a 2009 graduate and a 2007 graduate in less than a week apart.
I didn't know the name.
James Crimes, he
Crimes.
graduated in
Crime?
Crimes, Crimes. He graduated in 2007.
Yeah, condolences to his family too. That's just,
Tragic. He leaves behind 2 babies as well.
Thank you. Well, if that is no other comments, questions, then I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I second.
It's been properly moved in second. Ms. Allen, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Simmons?
Yes.
Mrs. Currington?
Yes.
Mr. Lumpkin?
yes.
And Mrs. Cherry?
Yes, motion passes. Meeting adjourned. Good night. Mr. Jonas? Mr. Smith?